Okay, let's get into this. We all know that feeling, right? That friction when you're trying to stick to a good habit.
Hmm.
You want the result. You want to be healthy. You want to be organized, whatever it is. But then the moment comes, well, the potato chips or the couch or just scrolling on your phone has this gravitational pull.
It feels impossible to overcome sometimes.
Exactly. So why is that? Why are temptations so powerfully attractive, and why does doing the things that are actually good for us so often feel like this exhausting fight?
Well, that fight exists for a reason. The modern world has basically mastered the second law of behavior change, which is make it attractive.
Right.
So our mission today in this deep dive is to really explore the biology and the psychology of desire itself. We're going to look at why those tempting, often bad things are so meticulously engineered to be irresistible.
And then, crucially, how you can use those exact same principles.
Exactly. How you can hack your own system to make the necessary, healthy habits just as compelling.
And to really understand this, to understand why we crave things that aren't always good for us, we have to start in a kind of strange place.
The animal kingdom, with a concept called the supernormal stimulus.
A supernormal stimulus.
Yes, it's a really foundational concept for understanding how easily our hardwired instincts can be, well, exploited. Think back to the 1940s. Nobel laureate Nico Tinbergen was studying herring gulls.
Okay.
The adult gulls, they have this little red dot on their beaks, and the baby chicks are just hardwired to peck that dot to get food. It's pure survival instinct.
So Tinbergen proved it wasn't the mother they cared about. It was specifically
The dot.
Yeah.
Just the dot. He offered the chicks fake cardboard beaks. I mean, literally just a head without a body.
and the chicks pecked it.
Enthusiastically.
But here's the critical part, the discovery. Tinbergen then made a fake beak with 3 huge exaggerated red dots on it, a stimulus that just doesn't exist in nature.
And what happened? They completely lost their minds. They pecked that hyper-real stimulus harder and faster than they ever did for their actual mother's beak. It's an exaggerated cue, and it got an exaggerated, totally overwhelming response.
You see this with other animals too. There's that famous example of the gray-lag goose.
Oh yeah, it has an instinct to roll eggs that fall out of its nest back in.
Right. So Tinbergen found that if you put a gigantic round object, like a painted volleyball, next to the nest, the goose would ignore its own real egg.
And spend just a tremendous amount of pointless effort trying to roll this giant volleyball back into its nest.
That volleyball is the ultimate supernormal stimulus.
It is. It taps right into that instinct.
Yeah.
Round object must protect. But the sheer intensity of it just hijacks the whole system.
And this is where the second law really becomes relevant for all of us. I mean, our modern world is absolutely saturated with human supernormal stimuli.
It is. We have the brains of our ancestors, which evolved to crave salt, sugar, fat, because, those things were rare and essential for survival.
But today, food is everywhere. And the food industry, they know about this vulnerability. They spend millions designing what they call hyper-palatable foods.
They're literally searching for the bliss point. That's the precise combination of salt, sugar, and fat that excites your brain just enough to trigger desire, but not quite enough to make you feel full.
And they use dynamic contrast, too. That satisfying crunch of a potato chip followed by that smooth flavor explosion.
That novelty, that contrast, it stops your brain from getting bored. It stops you from feeling full. And whether it's engineered food or social media delivering concentrated praise or ads with impossibly edited versions of reality.
We're all supernormal stimuli.
All of them.
Yeah.
And they're driving our excessive habits. So if you want to make a behavior happen, you have to deliberately engineer it to be that attractive.
So let's get into the mechanism then, the biology that turns a cue into a real craving. This is all about the dopamine-driven feedback loop, isn't it?
It is. And for a long time, we thought dopamine was just about pleasure. But now we know it's mainly about anticipation, about motivation.
Mm-hmm.
The evidence for this goes way back to 1954. Experiments by Olds and Milner on rats. They managed to block the release of dopamine in the rats' brains. And the scientists, they were just astonished. The rats lost the will to live.
They wouldn't eat, they wouldn't drink, and they died of thirst right next to the water.
Exactly. But here's the really critical nuance from later studies. Those same dopamine-depleted rats, if sugar water was squirted directly into their mouths, they still showed clear signs of pleasure.
So they liked it, but they didn't want it.
Precisely. The ability to experience pleasure, the liking that was still there. But without dopamine, the engine of desire died. And without desire, all action stopped.
And on the flip side, if you flood the system with dopamine, the animals become obsessive.
Completely. Mice would poke their noses into a box for a hit of dopamine 800 times an hour. It just shows you the raw, overwhelming power of that drive.
So the key insight here is that dopamine is released not when you get the pleasure, but when you anticipate it.
Yes, it's not a pleasure molecule. It's an opportunity molecule. It's the brain's signal to say, hey, pay attention. This is worth pursuing.
That really changes how you think about goals. A gambling addict gets their dopamine spike before they place the bet, not necessarily when they win.
The surge happens when they see the slot machine. That's the difference between wanting and liking. The anticipation, the wanting, is what makes us act. It's why daydreaming about a vacation can feel so good.
The wanting feels better than the liking sometimes.
Often. And our brain architecture supports this. There's way more neural circuitry dedicated to the wanting centers than to the smaller liking centers. Desire is the real engine.
Okay, so the goal then isn't just to enjoy a good habit, but to attach that intense anticipation spike to the cue for that habit.
You've got it. And that brings us directly to our first major strategy, temptation bundling.
Temptation bundling.
It's a method of linking an action you want to do with an action you need to do. You make the necessary habit more attractive by connecting it to a guaranteed reward.
The perfect example of this is Ronan Byrne, the engineering student in Dublin.
Oh, this is genius. He wanted to watch Netflix, but he knew he needed to exercise more.
So he didn't just tell himself he'd watch Netflix after cycling. He's an engineer. He hacked his stationary bike.
And wrote a program that physically stopped Netflix from playing, unless he was pedaling above a certain speed. If he slowed down, the show paused.
He literally made the need, the cycling, the gateway to the watching Netflix. The anticipation of the show was so high, it pulled him onto the bike.
And businesses do this all the time. Think about ABC's TGIT, Thank God It's Thursday. They weren't just selling TV shows.
No, they were bundling the shows, which is what they needed people to watch, with what viewers wanted, relaxing, eating popcorn, drinking wine.
They associate their cue with a deeply desired feeling. This whole strategy is based on something called Premack's principle. More probable behaviors will reinforce less probable ones.
And we can make this really practical by combining it with the habit stacking formula we've talked about before.
The combined formula is 1. After current habit, I will habit I need. And 2. After habit I need, I will habit I want.
Okay, so give me an example.
Let's say you need to practice gratitude, but you want to read the news. The formula becomes, after I pour my morning coffee, I will say one thing I'm grateful for. That's the need. After I do that, I will read the news. That's the want.
Or for exercise, after I pull out my phone, I will do 10 burpees. That's the need.
And after the 10 burpees, you get to check Facebook. That's the want.
Okay, but I have to ask, doesn't that risk making you resent the necessary habit even more? If I only do burpees to get to Facebook, won't I just hate burpees?
That's a great question. You're not trying to make the burpee itself enjoyable, not at first. You're just changing what the cue is associated with.
I see.
Eventually, the cue of pulling out my phone gets linked to the high dopamine feeling of getting to check Facebook. But the burpees are just a required step. The friction to start them goes way down.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, let's move on to something even more powerful than that. The incredible pull of our social environment.
This is our next strategy. Leveraging social norms. Humans are fundamentally herd animals. For most of history, getting cast out of the tribe was a death sentence.
Right. Belonging is survival.
And this desire to belong has a profound, often invisible influence on our habits. We don't choose our first habits, we imitate them. From family, from friends, from our culture.
The story of the Polgar sisters is just a remarkable example of this.
It is. Their father, Laszlo Polgar, he had this belief that a genius is not born, but is educated and trained. And he set out to prove it.
He created a very specific culture in their home.
An intense one. Their house was filled floor to ceiling with chess books, the daughters were homeschooled, and their lives were totally dedicated to the game.
So in their world, being obsessed with chess wasn't weird. It was normal. It was rewarded.
And the results were stunning. All three daughters, Susan, Sophia, and Judith, became world-class players. Judith became the youngest grandmaster ever at 15. And when you read their interviews, they don't talk about sacrifice. They talk about it being attractive, enjoyable.
Because it was the culture they grew up in.
Exactly. And we tend to imitate three groups in particular: the close, the many, and the powerful.
Okay, let's start with the close. Proximity.
Proximity has this powerful, almost insidious effect. We just automatically pick up the habits of the people around us.
There's some startling data on this, isn't there?
There is. A huge study tracked 12,000 people for decades.
Wow.
It found that a person's chances of becoming obese increased by 57% if they had a friend who became obese.
57%.
Uh,
That's incredible. So the biggest decision for your health might not be your diet plan, but who you eat lunch with.
it could be.
Hmm.
Precisely. If your friends find a certain behavior normal, it becomes more normal for you too.
Then you have the many. Conformity. This is Solomon Ash's famous line experiment.
Right, where subjects were in a room full of actors and they were all told to give the same obviously wrong answer about the length of a line.
And what happened?
Nearly 75% of the real subjects eventually conformed. They agreed with the group's incorrect answer at least once.
Even though they knew it was wrong.
Yes, the reward of being accepted by the tribe often just overpowers the reward of being right. Going against the grain is unattractive.
And finally, we imitate the powerful.
We have this innate drive for status and respect, so we copy the behaviors of successful people. The musician who plays the hardest chords, the entrepreneur who works 16-hour days. We do it because we desire the success and the status they have.
So the most effective strategy, then, is to join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior.
And this is the key, where you already have something else in common with the group. Don't just join a running club. Join a running club for people who love the same books as you. That shared identity makes the habit attractive.
Okay, so now that we've covered making good habits attractive, let's quickly do the inversion. Make bad habits unattractive.
To do this, you have to look past the surface craving to the deeper motive. Your brain didn't evolve to want to check Instagram. It evolved to want connection and social approval.
Our bad habits are just modern, maybe not so great solutions to ancient desires.
Exactly. And if the cause of a habit is the prediction of a reward, we need to reprogram that prediction. This is the entire strategy of Alan Carr's famous book, Easy Way to Stop Smoking.
He just systematically reframes all the cues associated with smoking?
Yes. Instead of saying you're giving something up, he says, you think smoking relieves stress. It doesn't. It destroys your nerves. By constantly challenging the predicted benefit, the craving dies. If you no longer predict it will bring you relief, the habit becomes unattractive.
And we can use this same reframing for good habits. The simple mindset shift of changing I have to into I get to.
It's a powerful cognitive shift. You don't have to wake up early for work. You get to wake up early for a job that provides for you. You don't have to save money. You get to build future freedom.
If I'm dreading a run, instead of saying I need to go run, I can say it's time to build my endurance. It turns a chore into an opportunity.
And if you get nervous before a big presentation, you can reframe those jitters. It's not fear, it's excitement. It's an adrenaline rush that's going to help you concentrate.
Lastly, we can create motivation rituals. We can condition a specific cue to a focused, enjoyable state.
Ed Lattimore, the boxer and writer, did this. He found that just putting on his headphones automatically increased his focus, even with no music playing.
So the headphones themselves became the cue.
The headphones became the cue for the feeling of focus. The ritual itself became attractive. You can do this yourself. Practice a small routine like 3 deep breaths and a smile right before something you already enjoy, like petting your dog.
And eventually that little routine becomes a conditioned cue for a good feeling.
And you can use it right before a difficult task to make it a little more attractive. So this whole deep dive, it shows us that to build habits, we have to make them irresistible, either by pairing them with things we already want through temptation bundling,
Or by leveraging our social drive to imitate the close, the many, and the powerful. It all comes down to mastering that anticipation spike of dopamine.
we have to remember, we're working with our ancestors' brains, but we're surrounded by these modern, pleasure-packed, supernormal stimuli. They're engineered to be hard to resist.
We often think of self-control as this brute force act of resistance.
But this deep dive really shows it's not about that. It's a design challenge.
If the modern world is engineered to make our vices irresistibly attractive, then the ultimate challenge for you is to consciously engineer your own environment, your own social circles, to make your necessary habits just as enticing, if not more so. So what's one necessary habit you can bundle with an irresistible want this week?